My name is Helene Dillard, and I'm the director for Cornell Cooperative Extension, and I'm also a plant pathologist, a scientist. My draw to science started quite early in my in my age. I was a young kid that really enjoyed science in school, and my parents kind of fostered that by buying me chemistry sets and little microscopes that you could use at home. And so I really enjoyed playing with those, and I always felt that I wanted to be a scientist, but I didn't know what kind of a scientist. I also thought it would be really cool to have a white lab coat. I think it became a focus somewhere around high school. I took all the biology type classes that I could take, and I also met a professor at Stanford who was a zoologist, and that kind of just encouraged me that, you know, you could do this and it could be a fun career. The story behind meeting the professor at Stanford is really interesting. My father was a toll collector on the Bay Bridge, and this professor would go through his toll collection booth quite often, and they just got to know each other and be friends. And my dad finally said one day, I have a daughter that's really interested in becoming a scientist. And he said, well, bring her up to Stanford and I'll show her the lab. And that's how I met the scientist at Stanford. Well, I grew up in San Francisco, so I didn't really know any scientists. My parents were not academics or anything like that. But there was just this internal love for science. I loved the outdoors. We used to go fishing a lot. And I was really into finding out the questions behind what you see. So I enjoyed asking a lot of questions about why. You know, why does this happen this way? Why did the parks look a certain way, and that sort of thing. And so eventually that love for the outdoors and the love for science led me to choose biology as a major in college. I went to University of California at Berkeley, where I majored in biology of natural resources. And that was a perfect major for me because it really exposed me to a lot of different aspects of science. And so I pretty much stopped using the word science, because then I kind of began to know what kind of science I was going to do. So I went to UC Berkeley as an undergraduate, and I majored in the biology of natural resources. And in that there was a lot of selections for elective classes. And I took soil science, and I really love soil. And I just thought, boy, this is what I want to do. And I also took a plant pathology class from a professor named Bob Robbie, who was just the most dynamic, enthusiastic professor I'd ever had. And I took his course. It was very difficult, but I loved every minute of that course. I lived and breathed to go to that class. And so I got out of Berkeley. I did some work in the soils area, did my master's degree, but every day that I was working in soils, I was thinking I wanted to be a plant pathologist. And so as it happened, I was on a field trip that went into the Salinas Valley. We were looking at soils and plants, and I sat next to a plant pathologist who said to me, you know, I've been looking for a graduate student who has a background in soils. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yes. And there it was. He offered me an assistantship. I took it, and I became a plant pathologist. The path to science as a woman, I would say, was, it had its bumps and potholes. And I think the first one I experienced was at Berkeley. And they had a field trip that required an overnight stay. And they hadn't had females take the field trip before. And so apparently, you know, it was a big deal that Well, now we can't just all go to the high school gym and sleep on the floor because there were at least 3 of us at that point, 3 females that wanted to take the course. And so I just remember that it was quite hysterical to watch, all of the hula that had to happen because there were 3 females that were going to be on this course. Other than that, when I went out as a graduate student working on, I worked on a fungal disease of lettuce in the Salinas Valley. I think at the beginning that some farmers were kind of thinking, but they knew you were working on a PhD, which kind of gave you some credibility. And I think that once you do your work, the gender thing kind of falls apart. And so there was always those hesitations at the beginning, but then once you got your foot in the door and you did the work, that all just seemed to dissolve and go away. And when I got here, it was the same way, except that here, there were some women extension agents. And so that really helped open the door immediately. And there were farmers that had daughters. And I think that, when they realized that their daughters, this could be their daughter knocking on the door saying, I'm the plant pathologist now, that I think it really makes a difference. So I really found that the gender issue wasn't that bad. I think that, my time, the age group that I came through in on had a little bit easier than maybe people before us. Science is really, I would say, the study of discovery and inquiry. It's people who ask a lot of questions about things and want to go deep into the answers. And so science has a broad spectrum. And so the word science is used kind of loosely because it does cover so many different things.